Hello and welcome to the Level Design Lobby. I hope you are all doing well. This is a very nice and special episode because we have a guest, Kendall Husband, who is a senior level designer, and he will be joining us to answer some level design questions and his thoughts. Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. This is your host with, well, I can't say the most, but I still gave Kendall a glass of water, so still something. Max Pears. I hope you're all playing and are making the games that you love. So as I said earlier, this will be a topic where I'm sitting down with our special guest, drumroll, Kendall Husband.
Thank you, sir.
How you doing, man? You good?
It's all good. It's all good.
Cool. So Kendall is a colleague of mine, and dare I say it, a friend. He is a senior level designer. He's a really great level designer. I've worked with him for
8 months now.
8 months now.
About that,
yeah, but it feels like an eternity of joy and pleasure. So he's been kind enough to jump on the show and discuss a few things with me. So Kendall, first and foremost, why don't you tell everyone a bit about yourself, mate?
All right. Well, as he told you, my name is Kendall Husband. I'm a senior level designer. And I am the only Canadian where we work, so, a little point of pride for myself there. But I'm originally from Calgary, Alberta. However, I started my career in Vancouver, BC, with a little company called Wishbone X, which was making a wrestling game at the time. And actually, I don't even think Max knows this about me, but I originally started as a environment artist.
I did not know that.
Did not know that. Now you know. But I was not super confident in my skills as an environment artist. So just a friend of mine said, if you combine that with design, you can be a level designer. And you still get to do a little bit of art, but, you get a much bigger impact, I think, on the playable spaces of the world. So I just went in that direction after that.
No, I did not know. It's probably because my disdain for the internet.
Exactly.
no problems with what anyone thinks I do. So no, man. So what was the wrestling game you made then?
It was just this little indie project going around Vancouver. It's been going on forever. It's still going on.
Well, it's not finished?
It's not finished.
Whoa.
No. But, no, it was just some little indie project some guy was doing, and it was just kind of a good way to, get your foot in the door a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was doing a lot of 3D props for that game, so, like, hockey sticks, obviously, chairs. I was doing a bit of animation as well, like animating some of the wrestling moves and stuff like that. But I don't know, the project wasn't really going anywhere. So after that, I took a job with Electronic Arts, and it was just testing games for about 2 years. And started with Skate It for the Nintendo DS, and then moved on to Skate 2. And during the time, though, I was testing, I was, working on my portfolio at home in the meantime. Yeah. And I was working with the Gears of War editor from Unreal.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, because when they released it for PC, it came with an editor. So I thought that was the time to learn how to use a proper editor, how to export my meshes into the world and, test it out, play around it, and, learn how to actually design levels for once. Yeah.
Oh, awesome, man. So then what was it like being a QA? Because that is also... sorry, my bad there. That is also one route into the industry. Like, how did you find it, and do you think it's worth people pursuing that route as well?
It depends, because for me personally, I was more of a driven individual, so I think a lot of people can get stuck there, if you know what I mean? And a lot of companies will kind of try to keep people there, I think. Yeah. But overall, it's not a bad way to get into the industry, because you get to work from beginning to end on a project and see how the timeline works and how to manage your time, how to budget your time, and all these things, and you'll just see the whole process play itself through without having too much responsibility. So it's a great way to get into the industry, I think, personally. Yeah.
That's cool, man. So then after you started getting and messing around with the level editor for Gears, what happened next then, mate?
So yeah, I made my own level in Gears of War, which was kind of based off these giant board games. So like big chess pieces, a big Monopoly board. And I was talking to some of the level designers at Electronic Arts, and I was trying to get them to like give me feedback and stuff, and really helped me push my level to completion. So they helped out quite a bit. And in the end, a few of the guys had left Electronic Arts and went to a different company at Next Level Games. So one of them had invited me to become a level designer because he knew I really wanted to get into it. So he invited me to Next Level to interview to be a level designer for Captain America, Super Soldier. So that was where I got my start as an actual level designer.
And based on you, because you are obviously America through and through.
Through and through. Captain America, developed in Canada.
No, man. So how was that experience then?
That was different, but it was good. Yeah,
because that was like your first time being a level designer. So
yeah, it was very different though, because I didn't really know how to like script. I guess I just they just threw it at me. So I kind of just figured it out on the fly, and people were always there to help me out and stuff. But it was a different company, a different timeline, different standards. But honestly, it's still one of the funnest projects I've ever worked on. Awesome. Even though it didn't score super great or sell super great, but it was still a blast to work on. Awesome.
Yeah. So you were saying about scripting. Was that visual scripting, or what was it, Lua or something? What was it at the time that you guys were using?
It was C+ based, so it was sort of a Lua-ish thing. It was all done by hand. There was no visual involved. It looked like just a big sheet of code. Yeah. But I learned how to read it and how to do it. But I mean, it was a struggle.
Yeah, I bet, man. I bet.
Yeah.
So after how long? Because I know that movie games, obviously tying into the film, like how long was the development time? I imagine that was a tough part of it.
Well, I came in probably like halfway through, so there was only about another, 8-9 months left on development. So I hopped in at that point, but I still got to have a pretty big impact on the project.
Yeah.
I even wrote some of the lines for Chris Evans.
Oh, really?
What a stud.
He is.
Yeah.
God damn him.
Yeah, and learned how to do a lot of enemy encounter stuff as well.
Yeah.
And I was the first person to prototype the challenge mode, actually, for Captain America, and that ended up making it into the final game.
Oh,
so,
awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
So then after you and Chris Evans, got a beer, celebrated,
exactly.
I'm sure he told you they were the best lines he's ever read in his life.
Yeah.
What did you then move on to then, mate?
I moved on to Luigi's Mansion 2 for the Nintendo 3DS. I didn't quite complete that game because I had moved on to Ubisoft, but I had started work on the second mansion in the game, which was the plant-based and water-based mansion. Yeah, I didn't work on that one for too long, but it was a very difficult project because we were working with Nintendo, and they're a great company to work with. They do actually take your feedback into consideration, but it's really hard to make puzzles that are satisfying and good and challenging a lot. So it was difficult, but unfortunately I didn't get to finish it. Yeah.
So then you moved on to Ubisoft, you see?
Yes.
Before we go, do you know if there's a Luigi's Mansion coming to the Switch? Like, what's this about? Like, I'm
too far gone.
Yeah.
Too far gone, man.
I want one for the Switch, man.
I don't know. Yeah. That would be fun.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. You then moved on to Ubisoft.
Yes. So at that point, I had moved on to Ubisoft in Toronto as, I don't know, I wouldn't say one of the first employees, but the first sort of batch of people that work there. And
when did Toronto's studio open up? Do you know?
It opened up officially in 2009, like right at the end of 2009. Right, but there was very few people working there. It was mostly HR and skeleton crew of people.
Yeah. No
development. And then I came on in 2011 when we were just starting work on Splinter Cell Blacklist. Yeah. Oh, nice. And that's really where learning how to design levels really ramped up a lot, because we were there from the beginning. We had to, plan out everything on paper. We had to do all the mission designs. It was pretty intense, but it was a good experience, I think. Yeah.
And I think Ubi's got one of the most kind of strict. I don't want to use the word strict, but very much they have their process down. With the RGD, RLD, and all this planning. Which I think when you're starting out, especially, and even when you're not starting out, you do learn a lot from that. So it's definitely one of the more rigid on how you make a level. So I think that's
it is a good process. Yes. I think it worked out pretty well. Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of changes done to the missions, but it was a good way to to get started.
Yeah, man, no, for sure. I don't know if you saw in Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon, Sam Fisher made his appearance a few months
in Wildlands?
Yeah. A few months ago.
Yeah.
And so how long were you at Ubisoft for then?
I was at Ubisoft for 6 years, like just a little bit over 6 years. So in that time, I'd worked on Splinter Cell Blacklist, Far Cry 4, Watch Dogs 2, and undisclosed project. Yeah.
So man, you got quite a few done then.
Yeah.
So how did you find then, I guess, switching from Splinter Cell to Watch Dogs to Far Cry? Did you feel that you could apply every lesson that you learned from the previous project onto these, or I mean, they're different games completely, so was every lesson applicable, I'm asking?
Well, actually, Splinter Cell and Watch Dogs are very similar.
Right.
Yeah, because they're both third-person, sort of stealth-focused games.
Yeah.
Where you can, use gadgets from afar. So it was very natural going from Splinter Cell to Watch Dogs.
Yeah.
But in between that, I had worked on Far Cry 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you enjoy I guess because I got asked this question, so I wanted to ask you actually. So when you're making a level for a third or first person, what are some of the biggest changes do you find? I know a couple in my mind, but what is it for you?
It's a lot of scaling, scaling sizes. I found the first person levels are a lot bigger.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll say one of mine. One of mine is it's how you reveal a location.
Yes.
In a third person, you could just enter through a doorway kind of to the center, and it's easy for everyone to see everything. But I think because, as you said, everything is so much bigger in first person, you have to, slowly reveal it. Sometimes, otherwise, the player has to look everywhere to see and read the entire level. So I think that's one of the...
In combat encounters, I think are a lot harder to do in first person. I find, at least.
Yeah.
For me, it was a bit easier in third person.
Yeah.
To design combat stuff. So.
I think that's right. Especially because you could see a lot more going on compared to first. I mean, it's cool in some ways because they get the better flanking of you, but
yeah.
No, it's definitely. I mean, each have their advantage and disadvantages.
Yeah.
But it is
exactly.
It is a different thing, I think, for sure there. And then after your epic triumph over at Toronto, you decided to grace us here with your presence, man.
Yes, decided. I knew the games industry would be able to take me places, so that was kind of part of the reason I got into it as well.
And now you're here.
Yeah, and now I'm here.
So you didn't expect the exotic vanilla.
I did not.
Sorry,
did
guys.
You see that coming?
It's the nickname that Kendall and myself gave myself, so I apologize as it's not a good one, but it's my nickname.
It works.
So no, man. So I guess then another question I have for you then, mate, is what's some of your favorite games then, growing up? What is it? Some of the games that made you want to get into the industry?
Well, my favorite game growing up was Super Mario Brothers 3, which I was actually playing this morning.
Okay.
But I think the one game that really did it for me was Unreal Tournament 99.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I was probably 13 at the time when it came out, and I was playing a lot of these custom maps that people were doing, and I'm like, how the hell are people doing this?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
And I think I took a crack at it a couple times. I was just like, this is too complicated for now. But it was really cool to see people do these giant bedrooms with the big cubes, the letter cubes on them. And then there was this other level I remember was called Valley of the Giants, and there was all these giant blowing up enemies, and they'd kill you in one hit, and all these things. Low grav insta-jib levels that people would do, and I was just amazed that there was people making things that didn't work for these companies, and a lot of their levels I thought were better. Yeah. So it was something I knew was I could do this one day once I got over the initial hurdle of difficulty. Yeah. Of the editor. Yeah.
Well, I think that's an interesting point. You raise up is considering nowadays where people have access to Unity and Unreal 4, Game Maker, Construct 2, and many other different editors, and how easy they are to use, and also there's a lot of videos online and stuff. What was it like for you to learn? How did you learn these editors and that?
Through a lot of trial and error, for one thing. And this was before there was a lot of YouTube tutorials and stuff, so I had these giant books on how to use Unreal. And there was 3 of them, I remember.
One had the red cover, one had the green, one had the blue.
Yeah, so I had all of those books.
Yeah.
And I would just have to scour through those books and look for whatever I could and how to do something. And just a lot of trial and error. And then there was a lot of forums online that you could ask people as well. And just hope to not get trolled, but, Yeah.
Pray to God you didn't get trolled.
Exactly. But, yeah, that was pretty much it. It was before the whole YouTube thing, so it was difficult for the most part. But if you just keep going, you'll find it.
Yeah, definitely, man.
The biggest part, though, was just not giving up with it, I think.
Yeah.
Because I'd kept going with these editors for a long, long time, and people would ask me, like, oh, how did you get into it? The same thing. And I just said, man, just don't give up. Most people look at the thing and they just say, screw this thing. It's too complicated. So, yes, it is. But just keep going.
Yeah, man. No, that's good. I mean, so, like, once you got over that, then, I guess, I don't know, like, when you were doing your portfolio and things, like, 'cause that's changed how we do portfolios and stuff. Like, did you have your own website set up for that and everything, or?
I do have a website. Really, it hasn't been updated for a very, very long time, but because the community in Vancouver and Toronto is such a small community, it wasn't entirely necessary that you'd have like a very curated portfolio and all these things.
Yeah.
Because if you talk to the right people and they'll give you feedback on what you need to improve and whatnot, and then from there, you can get a job from there.
Yeah.
But I think if you were applying outside of the country or something, you would need a really curated portfolio.
No, for sure.
And we didn't have these things like ArtStation back in the day either. So
that's changed a lot in terms of like how people do portfolios.
Exactly.
As well.
Yeah. So I just wasn't a huge fan of web design either. It was back in the day talking to people about portfolios, and they were so picky about everything, and I was just like, discouraged by it basically. So
I think it's also like a lot again, like stuff like Wix, WordPress. I remember when my first site that I created was like through Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
Old school. Exactly. Jesus.
It was still the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, and it wasn't always easy, that's for sure. But no, like, I think that's a very interesting one. It's interesting also just how you're saying about the community and how that can help put things through. So that's great to hear on that one. So what are you currently playing right now then, mate? What are you going through?
Well, I'm still playing a lot of old Nintendo games. Like I bought the mini Nintendo and the mini Super Nintendo, so I'm just playing through a lot of games that I didn't quite get to when I was a bit younger. But as far as modern games are going, I'm playing through Detroit Become Human right now.
Yeah. How are you finding that? You liking it?
It's good. It's a good break from something that's quite intense.
Yeah.
So, but I keep feeling like I'm making all the wrong choices in that game.
Are all the characters alive still though?
They're all still alive. They're all still alive. But every 2 seconds, the partner person gets a little down red arrow. And I'm like, come on.
So do you recommend that game? Worth trying?
I think it's worth a go. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
I really loved Heavy Rain.
I like the Quantum Dream, or was it Quantic Dream? Yeah.
Oh, the company.
The developer,
yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I like their games. Like, they're really good reference, basically, for me. They have really realistic proportions and really realistic layouts for a lot of their environments.
No, that's it. I think it's also interesting how they do like things like movement, like in Heavy Rain, for when the guy like picks up a glass. The fact that it's not just a button press, but it's like
you have to slide it up, but at the right time. So that it's,
Yeah, I think it's a very just a different way of thinking about things, which I think is really really cool and stuff. So as a Nintendo man, did you get a chance to play Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild?
Did I? Yeah. I was obsessed with that game.
Oh man, how good is that game?
I was obsessed.
I love it. So, like,
it was amazing.
The only thing I don't like about it is that I wish I could not remember it so I could play it again.
Absolutely.
It's so good.
I should dig up one of my old Facebook posts about how much I love that game and how sad I was when it was over. Like, I was legitimately very sad.
Like, I just remember putting it down and be like, now what?
Yeah, I know. It's the same thing. It was like that South Park where Cartman hears the joke. That's so funny. No other joke will ever be funny. No other game will ever be this good.
No, like it definitely took me to that like childhood sense of wonder with it, and I'm
still depressed.
No, it was a great one, an absolutely great one there for sure. But then we're going to move on to a different game though that me and you are. Like, I'm still going through, but you've completed it.
I have completed.
it makes me actually sad because you completed it way quicker than I have.
And it was your game.
Don't need to give that away, Kendall. And that is God of War, because we both, well, I'm enjoying it, you enjoyed it, and it's a very, very, again, it's another really good game. I think it's one of the strongest games that's come out this year thus far, for sure.
I would agree.
Yeah. And we're just going to talk a bit about that for the next few minutes, because the community has been very kind and responded with a fair few questions, which I will ask Kendall before the end of the show. So for these next 10 or so minutes, we'll just be going through a bit of God of War and what we've enjoyed about it. I think one of the things that I'll start with is its level design is a really interesting mix of multiple things. It's kind of I don't want to use the word open world because it's not an open world, but it's got that sense, that scale.
It feels like it is, yeah.
Yeah. And then it has that mix of Metroidvania in there as well, with the different mechanics which you can come back to later. So I think, how would you describe it? Because it's a very interesting one. It's a nice mix.
Well, you know what? I don't think the level design has changed much from the older games.
Do you feel all right?
I'll explain why. It's just because of the upgrade in technology, it feels less rigid now.
Right,
it feels like they have the nice, it's still kind of a hallway, which then leads into a fishbowl. Mm-hmm. And then which leads into another hallway with a puzzle. It's still exactly the same as it's always been. They're really good at masking it now. Yeah. And even though I know what's going on there, I don't feel it, basically.
Yeah. No, that's a very interesting point. I hadn't even thought about it. It's been so long since I played the original trilogy. But yeah, no, that's a very interesting one. I think it is nice though, in terms of the revisiting with the different mechanics and stuff. That's for sure. I think that's really, really cool. I think the combat design is such an interesting one for the levels, because you have the range combat with the Leviathan axe as well. You guys didn't see it, but I mimicked throwing the axe because I'm a badass.
And I mimicked being hit by the axe.
Because you support my crave decisions. So yeah, I think that one is really cool, because obviously the combat's primarily close quarters, but having that, I think they had to consider making the rooms and the battle spaces, or fishbowls as you put it, bigger in the sense to allow the player to move around more compared to say maybe one of the predecessors. I also think they do a great job of leading the player with how they use lighting, as well as they've got some puzzle areas, for example, how they have, you can see where the goal is. You could be on a top ledge and right down the bottom.
Vantage point.
And then you can see the chest. So you kind of know where it's going to be roughly in the layout. Yeah. And then when you leave, you kind of know, well, I have to go down into the back the direction I was, but just on a different level. So I think they're really good at, as you're saying, mental mapping the spaces around it. I think that's really, really nice that they've got there. I think there's some really nice things on that one. Anything you've got to add, mate? Yeah,
they're still following the same rule set they've always developed. It's just better now, I guess, because there's one of their pillars of design was everything was on a grand scale, basically. So you're a tiny little guy, who's very powerful, but everything around you is huge and epic or whatever. You remember from God of War 3 where you'd be climbing up the finger of the god, and then the camera would pan out. You'd see everything around you, so that you'd really get a sense of the scale of everything, and that lends to level design as well. And then there was a point in the newest God of War where there was the giant. Have you got to the giant yet?
I've done the bit where you have to the dead frozen over giant.
So basically. Where they kind of played off it's sort of this myth about this giant that died or whatever, and then you don't really think you're gonna see it, but then you see it. And it's on a massive scale, and you have to move bits of his body and all these things, and they've always been very good at making things on a grand scale, I find.
I agree. I mean, even that the sea serpent, I've forgotten its name,
the world serpent,
that's the one. Thank you. Even that, when that moves the bridges as you go between kind of different areas, that feels grand.
It's also a very clever way to hide your loads.
Yeah, I won't deny that. That's a good trick. I didn't even think of it like
Exactly.
that. Well played.
Yeah, they do a lot of that too, actually, with the side areas in the
Okay.
main map. Is they have you go through a cave before you get to the next
Yeah.
area, and that's just another clever way to hide the load times.
Yeah. Do you know, that's an interesting thing. Like, I've never actually brought up on the podcast, but like hiding the
Hiding
loading
load times,
time.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's a bit more obvious when you're inside of the world tree and you put in the key and then it switches around. But in the open world, they're very clever about hiding it.
Yeah. No, I think that's and it's I think it's also like because they are off branching as well. Like generally their side stuff is not actually along the main path. Most of it, it's actually on the way to the main path. So they don't like just put a branching path. It is along the way, so you never actually go or run into things. Well, they might do later from what I've seen so far, you know. But no, I think they're very good at those things. Is there any other kind of key takeaways you think you've learned or seen that they've done really well in it?
Well, they've done a good job of they're always do a really good job of making puzzles,
Yeah.
which I'm very jealous of because I never really get to design a lot of puzzles
Yeah.
in what I've done so far. So I really just appreciate the way that they do the puzzles in the game and how they've integrated the axe into basically everything.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was sort of the main tool of how to do things.
Yeah.
Where it was a bit less prominent in the older games, where it's more of like moving boxes and hitting switches sort of thing. But now they've introduced the axe into it.
No, I agree. I think the axe is definitely like one of their core pillars of just design in general. Like you need to do everything, not just the combat, but you need to have everything together to use that axe.
Yeah.
So no, I think that's some good ones.
If you love game and level design as much as we do, then why not consider supporting Level Design Lobby on Patreon? Patreon is a crowdfunding platform that allows people to directly fund the content and creators that they love. From as little as $1 per month, you can help support us in our mission to unite and teach people across the world about the wonderful and unique field of game and level design, and get some great reward perks in return, such as access to the Level Design Lobby community Discord, bi-monthly webinars, level design weekends, and much more. So head on over to patreon.com/Level Design Lobby for more information and to pledge your support today. Finally, we'd just like to say a massive thank you to all our current backers. It's thanks to the generous support of people like you that we are able to grow and can continue to bring you awesome, new and exciting content. So thank you. And now back to our regularly scheduled program.
Okay, that was some good points there. We are going to now move on to the Q&A session with Kendall. I know he's feeling the pressure.
Let's do this.
So I'm going to be asking you some questions, mate. And then let me just bring them up.
It's a Discord channel?
Yeah. So the patrons get access to it. Become a patron and join now, Kendall.
Pay your ass.
That's going to be the promo clip. All right. So thank you all to the community members who responded very quickly. Sorry I didn't give you guys much more of a time on this, but we have got some questions for the man, the myth, the legend, Kendall himself. So we're going to go through these ones. Okay, first one comes from Brad Butcher, and he asks, what techniques / ideas / lessons do you wish you had been given when you were still starting out in the industry?
Well, I wish people had told me things of not to rely on as a level designer.
Like, what do you mean?
So you think you can get away with a lot of stuff by just being like, oh, there's just a notepad here that says you need to go here and do this. But what I learned from another LD, he was saying you can't rely on these things all the time, like audio clips and things that come up on the HUD.
Yeah.
And what notepads on the ground and these kind of things. Like you can't rely on these things because people don't necessarily read them all the time.
Yeah.
So even though we still use them in almost all of our games, we rely less on them. The player should be able to get through a level without having to read a whole lot of stuff. They should we should be leading them with other techniques.
Yeah, man, no, that's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, the second one comes from Snow, and he asks, what are the challenges that come with being a senior on such massive projects? How do your responsibilities differ from other LDs and then?
It's not too much different. It's just you might get a bit of a shorter timeline for a more complicated space, basically, and they tend to give you a lot more of the, more complicated spaces, basically.
Yeah.
That's really the biggest difference at the moment, but you should be trying to mentor other level designers as well. And that's pretty much it, really.
I was going to say, the thing that I notice is with seniors and that is like, it is more about a mentorship kind of role.
Yeah.
It's not just about what you make, but again, what you kind of do outside of it.
Yeah, and you should be a bit more autonomous, I guess, in your work. They should just, be able to give you something and, just do it, basically.
Yeah. So this now comes again back from Brad. Okay. So if you've ever reviewed portfolios or were looking over at portfolios, what would you advise someone to do to make their portfolio stand out?
I haven't reviewed a whole lot of them. It's usually a lot of environment artist stuff that I get.
Okay.
For some reason. So I would try not to focus so much on art for a lot of level designers, because I find there's kind of two schools of level designers when they're beginning, as there's very art focused level designers, and then there's like layout focused level designers. So try not to focus on the art and try to give something playable if you can in something like Unreal or Unity that you can just launch up quickly and try it out.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. I think people do sometimes mistake level design for environment art.
Yeah.
And obviously that's not the case. So yeah, no, I agree with that one completely. So this one is another one from Snow, and he asks, all studios are run differently, so how has the level design process changed between studios?
It just depends on the company you're working for. Some companies are a bit looser with how you concept a level, whereas some are very strict. So for some studios, you'll have a period of time of gathering reference and 2D mapping and writing a lot of things, like mission design sort of stuff, you know. And then there's other companies where you'll just kind of get right into it. They'll give you an assignment. It's just you just have at it right away, basically. But both methods have their pros and cons, I think, because I'm a kind of guy who just likes to build things mostly, so I kind of like it when I can just get at it without having to plan too much, because then I know I'm going to iterate on it anyway. So
yeah, man. No, I think that's the thing, is like people work differently. Like some people like paper design, other ones don't,
Exactly.
And that's the thing.
But the one thing you always need is plenty of reference.
Yes.
Yeah.
God damn,
yeah.
I agree with that. That's some great quote there. I've been banging on about it for ages. So,
exactly.
I didn't pay him to say that. Here's your 10s, Waddy.
Thank you. Buy me some ice cream.
I'm going to take that back for the milkshake. But Brad asks, what is your most anticipated game coming out soon or this year?
This year is actually going to be Dragon Quest 11.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually a huge Dragon Quest fan. I like it more than Final Fantasy. What up?
Wow. All right.
Represent.
You're coming into my house where I got like freaking statues of Cloud. And all right. Okay.
So that's what I'm looking forward to. What else? I don't even know what else is coming out this year. Red Dead Redemption 2.
That's out this year, isn't it?
Yeah, that's going to be really good.
The first one was amazing.
Amazing.
So yeah.
That was another game that I was really sad when it was over.
The ending just... Because after you did it, obviously you could go roam around, but like that ending was... we can say it. It's been so many years.
Yeah.
Spoilers in like 3, 2, 1. But, when you played as his son and then found like, that was one of the best endings to a video game ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
It struck a chord. But also, it reminds me of home a little bit, because I'm from the cowboy part of Canada, so... I killed every last buffalo.
Different times, Different times. So this comes from FT. Thank you for the question, FT. Thank you again for everyone's questions. And he asks, when you're working for a game for years, how do you know or understand if the level or the mechanic is going to be fun? He gives the examples of, because we see it every day. Also, we see it from the very beginning, the very bare bones, to before it becomes that, and he asked this before we get QA as well, before QA get involved. Like, how do you know sometimes if it's going to be fun or enjoyable?
Well, you have to play test it basically, and not just yourself. I mean, you could think something's fun, and someone will be like, "This is awful." So you kind of have to get a general consensus.
Yeah.
So you need directors to play it. You need leads to play it. You need QA to play it, and you just need to get an honest opinion from people about it, and remove yourself from the equation basically. Because yeah, like I said, you could think something's really fun, and someone would be like, "This is really boring." So get other perspective on it, and then kind of gather a general consensus from there.
I think it's a tough one because you can't always get it right.
Yeah.
Because especially after you've worked on something and like it's the umpteenth time that you've come back to maybe a location which you thought was good at one point, and then when you replay it, like, whoa, what is this? And sometimes when you look at something for so long, even if someone tells you it's good and everyone's like, yeah, no, this is really good, you might not like it because you've seen it. So
it's the artist struggle.
Yeah,
we don't like anything we work on.
That's it. So no, like it's a tough one. I think you've also got to understand, like, what is it you're trying to do for that either mechanical level? Like, what is it that it brings to the table? I think that's a big thing. If it's like we're just chatting about the Leviathan axe. The reason that's fun, it's not only how it feels when it comes back to you, but because it's used in so many different ways. I imagine that even when they were prototyping that, because of the importance of it, they knew it was going to have a big impact.
Yeah.
On everything.
Well, one of the advantages of working for a bigger company is you have playtests done from people on the outside who sign very strict NDAs. Is you can observe them and watch them try and solve puzzles or use mechanics that you're working on, and then from there you can really see the flaws in what you're doing and seeing how they struggle with it, and you're like, oh, this isn't clear enough, I need to make this clear in some sort of way, you know what I mean? So it's all about playtesting, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. Like, it's a tough one sometimes because you don't always know. You can kind of have a sense, but you don't know how it's going to be received. And
exactly.
I don't think there is ever a point that you fully know. And there's a great interview with the devs from Naughty Dog where they thought The Last of Us was going to ruin the company.
Yeah,
because they were just so in the trenches.
Yeah, complete opposite.
Yeah, and then it became like, even to this day, I remember they were saying how they were jealous how people could play it and see the good things, because they were, every time they turned it on, they couldn't see anything nice because they were just so in the trenches. So you're not always going to know is a thing. So yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. But that is all the questions. You did well, Kendall. You survived question time.
Thank you, sir.
So yeah, so we are going to end the episode there. So I want to thank you, Kendall, for coming on the show. Absolute pleasure. Hopefully we'll have you on for another one. We can chat more.
Yeah, at some point, yeah.
More cool stuff. And thank you all for the questions coming in. Sorry on the short amount of time, but we got them in there for sure. And yeah, so thank you all very, very much. If you are enjoying the show, then please do check out the Patreon. The Patreon has a lot of amazing perks that come along with it. Even from as little as $1 a month, you can help us improve and get this podcast even better. If you are listening through the power of YouTube or SoundCloud, please subscribe. And if you're listening to it through a podcast app, then please do rate the podcast 5 stars, because I'm greedy for the stars. And thank you all very, very much. So take it easy, everyone, and we'll catch you all next time.